Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. President Donald Trump has ordered the withdrawal of his US troops from Afghanistan. 7,000 troops would be withdrawing from Afghanistan. 17 years on, Afghanistan is still a disturbed place. There are more terrorist organizations now operating inside Afghanistan. 17 years back, US came in Afghanistan to defeat Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. The Taliban were certainly ousted out of Kabul, but still large swathes of Afghanistan are still controlled by the Taliban. The peace talks have been going on between the United States and Taliban. Peace talks also took place in Moscow, in which regional countries also took part. And still, we don't see any clear future of peace talks between the Taliban and the US. But what is clear is that Taliban have negated any legitimacy to the Kabul government, and they have not been on the same page with the United States. And Taliban still think that the Kabul government is supported by the US forces and the US government. The withdrawal of US troops at this point, 17 years on, and while this whole thing is going on, that nothing is clear, the peace talks are not clear, is very significant. Many people in Afghanistan, they were taken, many officials by the way, in Afghanistan, they were stunned by this development and the orders of withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan. Still, President Ashraf Ghani, few months back, he said that the Kabul government and the Afghan forces are not capable of maintaining the law and order situation in Afghanistan without the US support for a few months for that matter. If this is the situation in Afghanistan, what does the withdrawal of US troops mean for Afghanistan, for the political stability in Afghanistan, and also for the regional countries? Because having no balance of power in Afghanistan would certainly mean disturbance, further disturbance. Today we are going to discuss about the peace and stability in Afghanistan, political stability in Afghanistan, and the future of peace talks and peace in Afghanistan. With our special guest today, our first guest is Major Retired Ahsan. He is an expert on Afghanistan, a renowned senior defense analyst, and an expert on Pakistan's and US foreign policy. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Second guest is Professor Dr. Amna Mehmood. She is a renowned analyst of international relations and of Pakistan's foreign policy. Welcome to the show, Dr. Amna. Mr. Ahsan, starting with this withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan. This came as a surprise to many Afghan officials, though nothing new perhaps for Pakistan, because we have seen a lot of tweets, unexpected tweets from the White House. We have seen a lot of unexpected statements from the US officials. Not a surprise for Pakistan, but perhaps a surprise for the Afghan forces and the American forces. How do you see this whole thing?
Thank you very much, Taimur. You have asked a very important question, and very lightly you have said with the tweets which started off and which basically brought the whole world on a thinking table that what is going to be the next. And in this case, these kind of tweets which were coming up, there was a view that these were very innocent tweets which were done at one point of time, but then that innocence later proved to be with a lot of thought process which had gone into it. And having said that, I would say the present situation in Afghanistan has become very clear by the end of 2018. If I begin with if I see the situation back in January 2018, the situation was not that what we see today on this day of 26th of December in 2018. And by the end of the year, at that time also, it was expected, and most of these programs which we had also during the beginning of the year, we were expecting that something significant has to happen in this year, because 17 years of war, it has been a very long time. And having seen the leadership change now, especially in America, and the pressure of the American people out there on their own, and then the kind of repeated problems which are faced by the American troops on the Afghan soil, then the Afghans itself realizing that there is another body for which Pakistan has been very loudly, has always been saying, and which has proved, alhamdulillah, very correct, that yes, you need to recognize that there is a power also which is called as Afghan Taliban, and you can't really deny that right to them, because they were ruling almost for the entire year this last, and for a couple of years beyond that, they have been ruling most of the area in Afghanistan. Until today, they hold that. So bringing them onto the table to talk and get this situation resolved had become very important, not only for Afghanistan and Pakistan, but for this region as a whole. With the Chinese perception of Obor coming into it, they have their own interest into it. So the involvement of the regional powers, which had always been our also concern, that the regional powers have to now be very effectively operating in this region, because someone from outside this region cannot be permanently settled here. So obviously America is one which had to leave one day or the other. So the earlier they have thought now that this is the time that they have to disconnect themselves from Afghanistan, I think has come very rightly, with a lot of thought process behind it, because America is going to preserve its economy on that account, because then the change of the narrative, the global narrative which has changed from geopolitics to geoeconomics, also is one of that leading factors which tells these so-called powers, the regional and the global powers, that now this is not the real way to really govern in one of the alignment has gone in because of this very particular important reason, because that realignment has also played a great role. So I would say that this visit of our foreign minister now going on and involving, however, I would say that if it would have been a little better if Turkey would have also been involved, could have also been into this peace process, then I think it would have been a very classic combination.
In Afghanistan, Turkey, by the way, they took the initiative of Heart of Asia regarding Afghanistan, and Pakistan has been, we have been discussing in our shows as well, that a year or so back, Pakistan has been very active in Heart of Asia conferences. But Dr. Amna, this point of Major Ahsan Bashir is very important, that there is this economic pressure perhaps on the United States. Do you see this decision of withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan as an outcome of that pressure, that economic pressure, Chinese economic pressure on the United States? Because perhaps President Donald Trump is looking at Afghanistan in a different way than the US forces are looking at the issue. Obviously, the American army would be having another view, and President Trump as a politician and President of the United States would be having another view. So economic pressures and the military pressures, because also 17 years on, we don't see anything that much under control in Afghanistan. How do you see it?
I think American policy is a combination of what American president has promised in his election campaign with the policy which is chalked out by the Pentagon. And certainly Pentagons exist as a potent force in policy making process. So you're very right, but I think that right now this tweet that came in surprise to a number of people, and people in Afghanistan sitting there, in US as well. But I think that that was well worked by President Trump in the reaction to the midterm elections. In midterm elections, his party lost number of seats, and that was the message that his policies are getting unpopular in US as well, and he is not able to fulfill his promises which he has made with the nation in his election campaign. And one of the promises was withdrawal from Afghanistan. That was a political strategy that he has adopted at the end of the year, as Major Saab is pointing out, that at the end of year he gave a surprise, and that surprise is actually which was due for the last 2 years. The second point, it is very valid that economic dimensions of this region are taking another shape. And we have seen economic war between US and China, and that is intensified in the last 2-3 months. But I think that is not in the interest of United States to carry on that war. Right. And Mr. Trump wanted to ease it as well. And for that purpose, he took this initiative that is going to relax almost all the regional power of this region, because Pakistan and US were at odds for the last 6 months. And during that period, Pakistan diverted itself to the regional powers. Right. And there was proper communication, constant communication among the regional powers like Iran, China and Russia, and they have initiative, and they are ready to fill the vacuum which is going to emerge after the withdrawal of US. And at the right now, you know, in international relations, nations come closer and they come on the same page when convergence of interest is there. Right now, with the withdrawal of, with the just announcement of 7,000 troops withdrawal, Iran, China and Russia, including Taliban and Pakistan, are on one page with the US because all wants withdrawal, all wants internal solution of Afghan problem, and the major stakeholders are certainly the countries sharing border with Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan and China. And Russia is almost a major stakeholder because they are having sharing border with Central Asia. And Russia wants to maintain its influence in Central Asian countries. So they want to have their presence here and they want to play a major role because they have been using Taliban as a significant factor against the US and NATO armies here. So I think that this point of at this point of time, US announcement for withdrawal is a very pleasant and very important move to bring all the forces of this region on one page and then come to a solution.
Right. This is a very important point. Mr. Ahsan Bashir, talking about this whole Afghan theater, the saga, there was a very interesting statement by DG ISPR, Pakistan. He said that Pakistan would like United States to leave the region as a friend and not as a failure. Now, this statement, how do you see this statement? Because leaving the region, what would that mean? And two words, failure and friend. Because over the years, we have seen Pakistan-US relations have seen ups and downs. And also, Pakistani officials, Prime Minister for that matter, former Prime Minister Shahid Khan Abbasi, he was very vocal about it. And he said that it's a failed strategy, United States failed strategy in Afghanistan. And Pakistan would not become a scapegoat in the region. So these clear statements and messages from Pakistani side, they're unprecedented. How do you see all these statements and messages?
I think DG ISPR is very correctly said this thing, and I would support him more on this, that obviously US has not failed. We can't really say that US has totally failed in Afghanistan, and then once they leave means that they have accepted a defeat in Afghanistan, and that is their withdrawal is directly linked to a defeat, that they accept it and then that's why they are leaving Afghanistan now. I think it should be like that, better realization has come. With the leadership of US, that obviously that what is in the best interest of US, they should be doing it, and they also have seen that what has been their policy earlier also needs a revision. Like wherever in the world, there are two different kinds of annexations we see, or two different things. The Chinese have got a totally different way of getting themselves engaged with others, and Americans have got totally a different policy to engage themselves wherever their interest is. So their interest at that particular time, once the Cold War era was totally different. But then after that, we have seen a lot of ups and downs, especially in relation with Pakistan, where the Americans and Pakistani relations have been very strained, but then there have been very good times also. And now also we see that those strained relations are getting back to better, and every day is bringing them a step closer for better understanding they have now between themselves. So I would say that it is not a failure by Americans' withdrawal from there, but however their strategy has changed, and that strategy, once they changed, obviously is in the better interest of Americans themselves, because they feel that if they keep themselves engaged in this region, and especially in Afghanistan in this way, then this is going to bring them more difficulties in times to come, because the region has its own dynamics also. And as I earlier said, that since the narrative has changed, they also feel feared about protection of their own economy as well. So they won't like to drain their economy in any of the places as well. That is why they have not only changed their stance in Afghanistan, you see that they have changed their stance even in Syria. They have changed their stance all over the world. They have changed.
So there is a major shift.
Major shift. So that major shift, whatever is coming, I think DG ISPR has read that very categorically, and they have read very rightly that this is not a defeat with the Americans, but a better sense has prevailed that if they disconnect themselves, they have disconnecting for just withdrawal of 7,000 troops. They have not said that every individual is withdrawing from there. So they are going to keep a bare minimum strength in Afghanistan present, which can assist Afghanistan to get totally back to its own normality.
This is a very, I would say, important point, Dr. Amna, that because US forces are there to give support to the Afghan forces. They are not active in the combat mission in Afghanistan anymore for the last couple of years. And keeping a minimum presence over there is perhaps that can work for United States. But as the Taliban have said, they have said that they want the withdrawal of all the troops from Afghanistan. Is that possible? And because withdrawing from Syria, Turkey would be replacing, many experts of the view, US in Syria. If US withdraws its troops from Afghanistan, Afghanistan is a total ball game, a different ball game altogether, as you know better. Who would be, let's say, keeping a check on what happens in Afghanistan? Because the political situation too is not that stable. We see warring factions in Kabul. We see warring factions in Afghanistan. So how do you see this?
I think that this is a very difficult situation for both Afghans and the regional players as well, because US army or NATO army is there to support indigenous Afghan armies to keep the law and order maintained, at least in the areas which are under their control around Kabul. But at the same time, we know that they are not able to run independently, especially the Afghan armies and Afghan police forces as well. And moreover, they were not involved directly in operations, land operations, but you see that they have been provided air cover to the Afghan armies wherever they are having operations. And I suppose that these 7,000 troops which are being withdrawn for, they are only ground forces, and no air force would be there, because Afghan air force is just at the primary stage at this time. And I think that these 7,000 troops would continue to stay here unless they would be having a viable solution with Afghan Taliban, especially, to have maintain peace with the Afghan government. And after that, there would be a series of negotiations between Afghan government and Taliban and other stakeholders, warlords of Afghanistan themselves. Then there would be some possibility of withdrawal of these 7,000 leftover troops.
Right.
I think that these troops are to be there because their immediate withdrawal would again provoke civil war in Afghanistan.
Right.
And that civil war is not in favor of any of the regional player, including their neighbors. So I think that this is the time when Afghan armies and Afghan government should take care, and I think that half withdrawal symbolizes the US planning, that they are giving responsibility to the local forces, Afghan government as well as their armies, to take care of their responsibilities in Afghanistan, to have a strong government as well as to have some negotiation and come to the solution of indigenous nature. Otherwise, there would be again civil war as it was previously, and there would be again fighting inside.
Very rightly said. But looking at the history, Bashir, of Afghanistan, we have perhaps never seen a very stable centralized government.
Rather, we have never seen that.
Never seen that, I'm saying, and in last several decades, centralized government in Afghanistan. Perhaps that is not their cup of tea, but how do you see it? Then stability, how do you see the stability over there?
I think the realization with the Afghan people has come up that they have to now resolve their issues by themselves. And now they have come to that brink. The history has told them. And what you are referring to is basically now they are more educated on that yes, it is our affair and we have to really see and we need to decide for ourselves. Where Pakistan has maintained its stance very well, in the way that Pakistan has always offered them a peace talk process, that yes, here is that, and that is why we always very loudly say that any process which is acceptable to Afghans should be done there. It has to be Afghan owned and Afghan decision, where the Afghans have to decide for themselves. We are there only to assist them because of 2-3 reasons. One is that we have got such a huge number of Afghan refugees coming to us, and we have been host to them for 30 years. And still there are a lot of Afghanis, those who are living in Pakistan, and they don't want to really tell you, they don't want to go back to their land, and they love Pakistan so much now. So we are basically with Afghans, we are natural, have a natural alliance. Pakistan has got border sharing with them. We have got brotherly relations with them.
Similar
we
culture.
share similar culture, we share the religion, we share so many commonalities are between them and us. So that is why we say that history of yours and our history is no different. But what is required now at the moment is in this entire region, and in this particular farm belt, Pakhtun belt, I would say, is required is peace. And peace which is basically in the interest of the people of living across the border, this side in Pakistan and that side in Afghanistan. So that realization is now very much prominently seen in Afghanistan, where Afghan Taliban want to have a really very strong place in the government. What's wrong about it? I think
they are the citizens of Afghanistan.
they are citizens of Afghanistan, so they have to go back and decide for the government for themselves. So government sitting in Kabul only through some support was not the right decision. So Americans and the region has now finally realized that anywhere in the world, the government which is sponsored by someone from outside will never work out. It will be basically the people of the land, those who will be more effective out there.
We will take a break at this point. Very rightly said by Mr. Bashir that ultimately the people of Afghanistan, they have to decide for themselves what is best for Afghanistan. Though there are many warring factions, but the bigger question in future would be the political stability in Afghanistan. Even if United States has a minimum presence in Afghanistan, the bigger question would be peace and stability and political stability in Afghanistan. We'll take a break at this point. We'll be right back after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi was on his visit to Kabul recently. There he met the Foreign Minister and also President Ghani. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi also made his maiden trip to Kabul. His first trip ever anywhere in this government was to Afghanistan, to Kabul. And this speaks volumes about Pakistan's foreign policy, Pakistan priority for Afghanistan and peace and stability over there. Dr. Amna, Foreign Minister's first visit was to Kabul, and recently again he was in Kabul. Both countries have been working on several issues, trade and economy and peace and security as well. What is Pakistan's foreign policy towards Afghanistan, and how is Pakistan at the moment looking at Afghanistan?
I would add to what Major Sahab said that we are actually playing the role of facilitator in bringing peace in Afghanistan at two fronts. One, that we are facilitating the regional dialogue, and Mr. Qureshi visited 4 countries in a row, and all the stakeholders, Iran, China, Russia and Afghanistan themselves, they were on board. And it was a great effort to communicate whatever they have discussed in one capital to the other and then bring them on the same page. That is a great effort on the part of Pakistan. Secondly, Pakistan has been a facilitator in conducting dialogue between United States and Taliban. Though they were not on the same page, but we tried, and last week in Dubai there was a talk, and on the other hand they are having communication between the internal factors like Taliban and other stakeholders with their regional players like with Iran and with China and they are having their different interests. China, Russia and Iran are having different interests, but Pakistan is bringing them on convergence, that the withdrawal is in the interest of the whole region, and that is both in terms of economy, that is war that would continue, and China's economic stakes would be secure, and at the same time in terms of terrorism, that it would not be transported anywhere across Afghanistan. The other, that if the whole region is in favor of US withdrawal, that can be through a peaceful solution. But I suggest that, that we just discussed that Afghanistan has never been under one central government. And that there are a number of other nations like Afghanistan having diversity, having different ethnic groups, and they are conscious about their identity. So this constitution, which is imposed by the United States, is not a good power sharing formula. There should be some indigenous power sharing formula, that some of the regions, they don't want to live under Kabul directly, and they don't want to be controlled by Kabul directly, and they are in revolt position. They can be given internal autonomy. And then central foreign affairs like security, military affairs, they can be dealt through the central government.
That could be
enough.
centralized, but
yeah.
right.
So there should be some indigenous power sharing formula on the basis of their regional control, on the basis of their territorial position, and on the basis of their ethnic composition.
Right.
I think that would be better for, at the same time Mr. Qureshi is conducting, actually we are just facilitator, and Pakistan has never been involved directly in internal politics of Afghanistan. You see the politics from 1979 onwards, we have been facilitating them, and even at the cost of our own national interest, even at the cost of our economic and social fabric, which was torn during this period. And I would second Major Saab that we can be facilitator in the long run as well, until there would be a viable solution, because we want a peaceful Afghanistan on our next door, right? And at the same time, Afghanis are not Pakistanis. They are Afghanis, and they are conscious about their identity, and we support their identity. And we want their peaceful return to their homeland. They should participate, and we have educated them, we have trained them, we have given them university degrees from our universities, and we are still giving them scholarships to come to Pakistan and then study and then go back. But this is all for the rehabilitation and development of Afghanistan. And this role of Pakistan can be acknowledged and can be appreciated by the whole world. And now United States has that realization as well. So I think that Pakistan is facilitating both withdrawal from armies, so border security and other, and Pakistan is also facilitating internal power sharing and negotiation among the stakeholders sitting within Afghanistan. So that would be I think that is the best role any nation can play for any of the neighbors.
Certainly, rightly said on Pakistan's foreign policy. Yeah. Talking about the security situation over there, Major Bashir, we can't deny this fact that still there is violence going on in Afghanistan. Still Taliban carry out attacks on different cities in Afghanistan, because there is no clear peace talks or peace negotiation between Kabul government and the Taliban. Who do you think? Do you think that if US is withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, which country can ensure peace and stability over there? Because looking at the present situation in Afghanistan, it's not stable. There is instability in Afghanistan.
I think there has to be a combination, and in combination, once I say it is Afghan and Pakistan, because Pakistan has got as a role to play in Afghanistan, and we have been playing that positive role of bringing the factions together and trying to tell them that you have to maintain your own land, you have to stay that way. Fencing is one of the examples that we once started to do. There was a misconception about it that Pakistan is trying to fence, and why should that be fenced? But then later, once the Afghans were made to realize that it is in the best interest of yours and ours to make sure that those who are the spoilers in this entire game are contained, then they have supported now. And you have now seen that there is that progress of the work all along for that fencing is going on smooth now, and you do not hear
Right.
any untoward incident for a while. You have not seen that. So I would say that the security situation will only improve once the entire security apparatus of the Afghans themselves starts working. Pakistan can be an assistant in that as well. Pakistan can give them the technical assistance in that. Pakistan has that. Pakistan has seen for a very long time. Pakistan is a country which has gone through a massacre. You know, you have seen that. We have seen this menace of terrorism for such a long time. So Pakistan Army, Pakistan forces, Pakistan's police, Pakistan Rangers, and Pakistan's even, I would say, the diplomats even, everyone is so well trained now on this thing that they can always be an assistance in forming up some kind of an apparatus in Afghanistan once the situation, or once they really want that to happen.
Right.
So I think Pakistan will be the right choice for the countries, those who really, if want to give some role to someone in Afghanistan. And other than that is the NATO presence. The NATO or the reduced presence of the others for a while will also be there. So they will also be inducted into this same. So once I talk of an apparatus working in Afghanistan, I talk of a bigger apparatus, I say here,
Right.
because which would include Pakistan, and Pakistan's skilled people should be there. Those who can really teach the Afghans, those who can really put them on. Already it's going on. The Americans have their technically skilled individuals out there, but then they are limited. They have got their limit access to only Kabul or around Kabul. So their mandate and their things were different once they were working on that account. Pakistan will work on a very broader or a larger canvas. Pakistan will work onto it.
Dr. Amna, since now US forces would be withdrawing from Afghanistan, 7,000 troops are withdrawing. We don't know for certain that how many troops would be there, or if US would keep presence over there or not. We hope that there is stability in Afghanistan, but things are still not that clear inside Afghanistan. While this is happening, we have also seen ups and downs in Pakistan-US relations. As Major Bashir was saying earlier, though there are some improvements, but they too at times are temporary. You never know about any tweet coming on from White House anytime. So while things are not that predictable, what are the options for Pakistan regarding United States? And the situation is changing. How is Pakistan dealing with other countries in the region and big countries like China and Russia?
Okay, I would first try to answer, but you have the question you have put to Major Bashir Saab. I think that I differ on this point. Pakistan has been playing, Pakistan is rightly facilitating Afghanistan, dialogue process, everything. But at this point, no country can fill the vacuum created by the US withdrawal. Pakistan can play a very important role, as Major Saab pointed out, but before evacuating the whole NATO armies. Pakistan can facilitate them to come to an internal indigenous solution, political solution to all Afghan groups, and some agreed upon power sharing formula or a new constitution that Pakistan can help to them. But after that, if Pakistan is trying to fill the vacuum, then again that war and civil war would be transformed to Pakistani tribal areas as it has been before. Fencing is a good confidence building measure, though on the opposite note of the Afghan government on that. They don't want to have that fencing, but Pakistan has its for own security. They have created in their own tribal belt after a long struggle of Zarb-e-Azb and a number of other operations. So this is not suggested to Pakistan authorities to enter in any sort of vacuum filling process after the withdrawal. One, I would suggest, that is my opinion.
Right.
The other, that obviously all the stakeholders are here, and you see that the change in US foreign policy after 5-6 months, that they again wrote a letter to Pakistani Prime Minister to enter into peace process again and facilitate the US in discussion and negotiation with Taliban. That was a change because in reaction to a very positive foreign policy followed by Pakistani Prime Minister and the present government. That is the government's continued multilateral regional solution process. And they did not respond to aggressive US stance that we are doing this and we are doing that. Pakistan once presented its explanation and then Pakistan continued that process. And US saw that Pakistan is successfully carrying its diplomacy in all the 4 capitals. Still, Mr. Qureshi is visiting right now. So I think that this is the realization in US Capital and State Department that Pakistan is continuing that process. So it is the time to use that continuity of the process in favor of the US. And you are very right that there would be any tweet at any time from the US Capital, because US is having their own interest and they determine their interest according to their, for National Security Council advice, Pentagon and others, and they are not dependent on any of the nation for guiding their foreign policy. So I think that US is actually using now the peace process started by Pakistan, China and Russia in this region in their own interest, and they don't want to be isolated from the fruits of this peace process. Pakistan and this region is getting out of that.
Right.
They want to cash that interest and they want to be involved, and they don't want to be assumed as a failure in this region. So they want to cash the success they are making in this region. They would not be able to withdraw successfully or respectfully without the involvement of these region players.
What should be, Mr. Bashir, Pakistan's strategy in future regarding Afghanistan and also dealing with the United States?
I think the policy for Afghanistan, Pakistan's policy in Afghanistan is very, very clear. And that is that we want to assist Afghanistan and having a sustainable peace in Afghanistan, which after the withdrawal of the troops from, and the vacuum which Dr. Amna is mentioning, what I really meant was that technical assistance. Technical assistance would not be like any physical involvement of getting down to troops involvement or on the soil of Afghanistan, no. But technical assistance would also be a way to basically bridge that gap, which might be looking like a vacuum, but then that can be bridged in that way, because Pakistan is having that skill in itself now. Afghanistan has become a point of contention for this region. Peace in Afghanistan means the entire region becomes peaceful automatically, except for one issue which will remain outstanding, and let me mention that, and that will be the flagship point, and that is the Kashmir outstanding issue, which will still disturb the peace of this entire region. But otherwise, Afghanistan peace means a greater peace in this region for obvious reasons, for better economic activity in this region, which is right at our doorstep and knocking. And obviously, America will also be a beneficiary in that way, because they are having a route to cut down themselves from this kind of involvement which they have, which is a direct drain on their economy.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Bashir. Thank you for your time. Pleasure having you on the show. Dr. Amna Mehmood, thank you for your time. Pleasure having you on the show. That's all from today's show. Pakistan certainly has been striving for peace and stability in the region, and primarily in Afghanistan. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi made his maiden trip to Kabul. Again, recently he visited Kabul, and this speaks volumes about Pakistan's priority, and which is peace and stability in Afghanistan. Pakistan has been striving for it, and we also hope that peace prevails in Afghanistan. Thank you for watching to this show. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.